Hi, how are you?
Good to see you, dear boy. The words are up, and here we go. La la la, la 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 la. Welcome to my morning, welcome to my day. Yes, I'm the one responsible. I made it just this way to make myself some pictures, see what they might bring. I think I made it perfectly, I wouldn't change a thing. La la la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Welcome to my happiness, you know it makes me smile. It pleases me to have you here for just a little while we open up the spaces, try to break some chains, and if the truth is told, they will never come again. La la la, la 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 la, la la la, la 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 la. Welcome to my morning, welcome to my day. Yes, I'm the one responsible. I made it just this way to make myself some pictures, try to create some change. I think I made it perfectly, I wouldn't change a thing. La la la, la 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 la, la la la, la la la.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I'm your platform assistant, Debbie Clay. Our guest speaker today is Reverend Karen Hamilton, and she will be speaking shortly. But first, we want to welcome everybody. Is there anybody with us for the very first time today? Are you sure? I recognize your faces. You've been here before, haven't you?
Oh, she brought someone new, see?
Or has it just been a very long time?
That's just first time for me, not for her.
Oh, okay. Did you get a red heart?
No, I did not.
Okay. Is one of our ushers available? Calling an usher.
Red heart, red heart.
Could we have a red heart to this gentleman back here?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for that.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir. And a welcome.
Very good. Okay. So we will be explaining a little bit more about what the Red Heart Welcome is all about. But first, we want to have some more music. So it's a heart song.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love, there is only love, love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, when I go inside and quiet my mind, I can hear Spirit gently say,
So our musicians, as you can tell today, are Sally McAllister and Jamie McAllister, and we thank them for that. And by the way, Sunday mornings don't happen just by accident, so we want to give some recognition. Our usher today is Nora. Chaplain of the day. Do we have a chaplain of the day? That line is blank on the form. Okay, well, I can see that there's some chaplains here with us. So if, okay, thank you, Debbie Lee, back there. If you would like supportive prayer following the service, just know that Debbie Lee, and there's other chaplains present as well, we're available for supportive prayer following the service. Okay, and our youth ed champion today is Cindy Swink. Mary Ellen and Ann are handling the hospitality, and Spick and Span Angels, that's everyone. So when we have our fellowship time, if you could help clear away the crumbs, that would be much appreciated. Our technology director is Mark Swink. He's responsible for what you see on the screens, microphones, audio visual, and we do live streaming on the web. So just so you know. All right. So what the Red Heart is all about. If you're new today at Unity of Bremerton, we welcome you in the spirit of love. We want you to know that no matter where you are on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. We know that the world is a better place when we are willing to share our hearts. We give you this heart as a symbol of the steadfast spirit that lives within each one of us, and we ask you to carry this symbol as a member of the Red Heart Fellowship. Let it be a reminder that the love of God is always with you, and to share your heart wherever you go. The Red Heart, as a symbol of fellowship in the world, can spread love one heart at a time. Let's start the movement here. Kind of on the same vein, I had some prayer meditation time this morning, and it came to me to share the loving kindness poem, and many of you are familiar with this. So the first time I'll read it through, I'll use I, but the second time I read it through, I'm going to use the word your. So I invite you to kind of drink this in and think about how we can bless our world this way. May my heart be peaceful and free. May my mind be happy. May my body be healthy and strong. May I be well and happy. May your heart be peaceful and free. May your mind be happy. May your body be healthy and strong. May your body be well and happy. May your mind be well and happy as well. Okay, thank you. Okay, and just a reminder for those who are new, we have different speakers every week. We have a variety, so we invite you to join us and try us out several times, see what's new and different each time. Okay, some brief announcements today. Most of them are in your bulletin that you were handed as you came in, but a couple of reminders. Many of you know Don Cowdery. We called him Grandpa Don. He passed away, and there's going to be a celebration of life for him at the Disabled American Veterans on Burwell Street. This is coming up April 21st at 1 p.m. and they're asking people to bring a potluck dish to share as well. And there's some other notations in here in the description, such as the fact that his widow, she's allergic to flowers, so she asks that you not bring flowers. But if you choose to make a donation, it's requested that you make a donation to the disabled veterans. That was one of Don Cowdery's favorite charities. And again, there's more information in your bulletin about that. Okay, and other guest speakers are coming up. That's also noted in your bulletin. A family fun night is scheduled for April 28th, and that's where we play board games and have snacks and just generally have a fun night together. So put that on your calendar and join us. It's a whole lot of fun. So just a few announcements. Board member of the week, Nora. Oh, I'm sorry, Ann. Ann has more announcements. Welcome, Ann.
Good morning.
Morning.
Unity of North Kitsap has a weekly meditation on Thursday, April 19th at 7 p.m. Heart-centered consciousness. During these times, it may seem difficult to focus on the positive. How do you keep centered on the power of love? We will be sharing ideas for choosing the awakened life. Heart-centered consciousness leads to a life of purpose, and with it we can change the world for the better. The words of an old hymn show the way. Breathe on, breath of God, fill me with life anew, that I may love the way you love and do what you do. Join Carol Lynn for Thursday's meditation in the Fellowship Hall at Faith Episcopal in Paulsville. Saturday, April 21st is the Celebration of Life, which we've just talked about for Don Cowdrey. There is a flyer on the bulletin board in the fellowship and information about this in today's bulletin. There is limited parking, so it might be a good idea to meet here and carpool over there. If anyone is interested in carpooling, please use the sign-up sheet in the fellowship area. That's a very good idea because there is no parking. Our next Family Fun Night, which you just heard about, is the 28th of April from 6 to 9. Go ahead and sign up so that we know there's a good number of people going to be here, and there's going to be snacks to share and have some fun. We want to remind you that we are live streaming our service. We ask that you keep conversation down because it's being picked up, especially during the candle lighting and paper burning. Also, please be aware to have your cell phones off or on vibrate. We want to remind everyone that prayer request forms are available in the pocket at the back of the seats. And you can put them in the prayer box up here, which is right over there. Point to the box. Yes, I did. Or put them in the offertory bags as they are passed around. The chaplains are also available to pray with you after service. Please stop by the table in the fellowship area to see all the sign-up sheets we have for the events that are coming up. We have sign-up sheets for our upcoming craft fair. You can sign up to participate by contributing items to be sold or to be there for the event, or both. For the men's group meeting in April, for the astrology meeting in May, and for our weekly e-blast newsletter. For the photography club meeting, and there may be other things on that table too, so take a look. We want to share something very timely. Please turn to the back page of today's bulletin. At the bottom, you'll see a quote from the book titled Myrtle Fillmore, Mother of Unity, by Thomas E. Witherspoon. The first words to be held in silence through thought and silent thought every night from April 15th to May 15th were these. God is all goodness and everywhere present. He is the loving Father, and I am his child, and have all his attributes of life, love, truth, and intelligence. In him is all health, strength, wisdom, and harmony, and the board will continue to update you weekly. If you have any questions or concerns, please see a board member. And we should have our signs on who we are, if you don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, I'm going to light the Christ candle now. It's, of course, representing the divine light that's within each one of us. Okay, so our mission statement is on the screen. Can we say this together? We are a welcoming community supporting our mutual quest for spiritual truth. And this is our invocation. Can we say this together, please? There is one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good omnipotence. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to have a brief time of handshakes and hugs. I'll just remind you that following the service, we do have our fellowship time for longer conversations. So we're going to keep it brief, but we're going to greet each other. We tend to be a huggy church, so if you don't want to be hugged, put out your hand real quick and we'll shake your hand. If you do hug, hug gently, Okay? Thank you.
Hello. No sun today? But nothing here today. Your son. Nothing. There's no sun up there or with you. S-A-L-L-I-E, not Y. How do you name? Yeah. I'm glad I got it in time. Hey, lady, good to see you. Yes, I know that. You know what? It'll feel better when it stops hurting.
Yeah. How are you doing, lady?
Good, thanks.
What a blessing he has been.
I know. That's for darn.
Good morning, how are you? Not ignoring you, just working my way through. And the fun starts.
No matter what, I'm gonna rise above. No matter what, I will be filled with love. No matter what, I'm gonna let the light of God shine, shine, shine. No matter what, I'm gonna rise above. No matter what, I will be filled with love. No matter what, I'll let the light of God shine, shine, shine. Couple more times. No matter what, I'm gonna rise above. No matter what, I will be filled with love. No matter what, I let the light of God shine, shine, shine. One more time. No matter what, I let the light of God shine, shine, shine. Daily word, prosperity. I am of the God within us, right? I am open to divine ideas. Divine ideas are like the seeds of hope planted in my heart. When they are properly nurtured and tended, they produce the manifestations in my life that represent abundance and prosperity to my own mind and soul. I might be surprised at some of the ideas that pop into my head and might not see how they could possibly come about. Being open to divine ideas involves a large degree of surrender to the source of those ideas within me. My prosperity is not dependent on my limited mortal mind. I make the choice for prosperity, open my mind to divine ideas, and allow them to guide me to next steps and new possibilities. From 3 John chapter 1, verse 2. Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you, and that you may be in good health, just as it is well with your soul. Today, I am open to divine ideas. God blesses us. Give a little love, give a little light, it comes back round and I feel alright. Ah, life is good. Ah, life is good. I give a little love, give a little light, it comes back round and I feel alright. Ah, life is good. Ah, life is good. One more time. I give a little love, give a little light, it comes back round and I feel alright. Ah, life is good.
Okay, everybody knows the song. Well, a lot of people know the song. I did it a couple weeks ago. I always credit Daryl with introducing me to this song. I'm the Lord of sea and sky. I have heard my people cry. All who dwell in dark sin, my hand will save. I who made the stars of night, I will make their darkness light. I will bear my light to them. Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my hand. I'm the Lord of wind and flame. I will tend the poor and lame. I will set a feast for them. My hand will save. Finest bread I will provide, till their hearts be satisfied. I will give my life to them. Whom shall I send? Sing along. Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my hand. I will hold your people in my hand.
And now, Reverend Karen Hamilton.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's get myself set up here. Mark, is that good right there? Okay. I am so excited to be here with you today. Last month I spoke, and let's see if I can operate this right. A few days after I spoke, my husband and I took a journey of a lifetime. We went to Egypt and Jordan and Israel. We did the whole Exodus and all up and down Israel Holy Land trip. So this is a trip we actually tried to take 7 years ago. And while we were on an airplane over the Atlantic Ocean, a few rockets were launched into Israel, and rioting broke out in Egypt. And so it was canceled. And we were a little disappointed. We made the best of it, and I thought, well, this whole that whole expedition was called a Holy Land Adventure, and I said that's par for the course, right? I mean, does life ever turn out the way we think it's going to turn out? No. So we still really wanted to go, and so for the last 7 years, we've been saving our money and just really preparing ourselves for this trip, and so it was everything and more than I thought it would be. And so I'm really excited because having that experience of being in the land of the Bible and seeing those sites and artifacts, walking and reading the stories on the bus with our group really strengthened my faith, and it really re-informed my understanding of those stories. And so I'm excited to bring back a little bit of that for you. So, into the promised land, rolling back the desert in our lives. So Cindy emailed me last week and she asked me for the name of my talk, and I said it was going to be rolling back the desert in our lives. And I wrote that talk. And a few days ago I was reviewing my materials and I realized that was really the second half, that I was forgetting the whole first half of our journey, which was into the promised land, and that I really needed to do that first. And so our talk today is going to be into the promised land, and next time I speak, it will be rolling back the desert. And I'm going to share a few pictures, tell you a little bit, but mostly I'm going to tell you a story. And this is a story that has the ability to really dramatically change how we perceive our life and improve the quality of our life. So I'm pretty excited. Are you ready to go on this journey?
Yes.
All right. So we flew from Seattle to Paris and then from Paris to Cairo. We landed at Cairo at night. We had missed a whole night of sleep. And it was late in Cairo. It was like 9:30, 10 o'clock when we landed. It was almost midnight by the time we got to our hotel. We had flown in a day early, and our plan was to rest that next day because we knew we would have missed that night. But our dear, sweet young man, our guide, picked us up from the airport. His name was Mohammed, and we called him Mo. He said, Reverend Karen, and he knew I was a minister because the company he works for had actually offered me a different trip in the past. It was for ministers only, and I didn't end up taking that one. But he had some information about me. He said, I'm so glad you came a day early because I want to take you out tomorrow. Because you have to start at the very beginning. And so 7 o'clock, we were on the bus that next morning. So we didn't get extra sleep. Let's see here. Maybe it's... Okay, so that's actually... From our hotel, you could see the pyramids. That was taken early in the morning. The sun had just rose, and there was a little bit of a sandstorm. You can kind of see that. So you can see the pyramid in the back, but it was a little bit sand. You know, there was some sand blowing around, and you can see the back in the background. Okay, so the ancient city of Memphis. That was the old kingdom in Egypt, and that's where we went the first day. That's where it all began. So that kingdom was built at about 3000 BC, and it was like their headquarters, the center of Egypt, for about 1,000 years. And our story begins there with Abraham. So remember Abraham and Sarah? They left their land because there was a famine. And this was a famine both physically, they were short on water, and it was a spiritual famine. And so they set forth on this journey, and they went to Egypt, to Memphis, the city. So that's just an artifact that they found in that area. And when they got there, the Pharaoh wanted to talk to them. He wanted to discern if they were there for good reasons or for ill. And Abraham, do you remember, he got a little bit nervous. He felt a little bit of fear in his belly because he realized he had a dang good-looking wife. Sarah was a beautiful woman. And he was afraid that the Pharaoh would want her for himself. and that he just might kill Abraham to get her. And so he whispers to Sarah, tell them you're my sister, if you're asked. So that's a little white lie. Scholars believe that she actually was his half-sister, which that was common in those days. But nevertheless, it was his fear that prompted him to have her say that. Well, the Pharaoh is taken with her, remember? And he does want her for his own. And so he starts making some plans. And Abraham, is a little panicked, and he pleads to God, help me get out of this situation. Help us, please. And so the Pharaoh starts having these nightmares. And things start happening, and he's like, what's going on here? And he does a little bit of investigation and discovers, he asks Abraham what's happening, and he finds out that they're married. And he is tired of having these nightmares, and he wants to set things right. So he blesses them, and he gives them all sorts of food and provisions, but he tells them to go. Leave, please. And he also does something else, which was common in that time. He gave Sarah a maidservant. And this woman, Hagar, was actually one of his daughters. Did you realize that she was an Egyptian princess? And so she goes with them. And of course, we know the story. Sarah and Hagar both have a son, right? Ishmael and Isaac. And there's a little bit of conflict there between them. But in the end, according to our Bible, according to the Jewish teachings, Isaac receives the spiritual birthright. And he has 2 sons. And those 2 sons are Esau and Jacob. And they have a little conflict too. So there's a little bit of going back and forth. But in the end, Jacob receives the spiritual birthright, and he then has how many sons? 12. And his name is changed from Jacob to Israel. Remember that? So Israel has these 12 sons, and they have a little bit of conflict. The humanity always comes out, right? So Jacob and his 12 sons, the 12 sons are a little bit jealous of Joseph. And they conspire, and they sell him into slavery into Egypt, right? Joseph is in Egypt, he's working and he rises, but then he falls and he ends up in prison. And then he rises again because he's able to interpret the Pharaoh's dreams. And what ends up happening? He becomes second in charge of all of Egypt, second only to the Pharaoh. And then he goes on this huge project of building reserves and storing food for a famine that he prophesies is going to befall them. Well, during this famine, his brothers come back, his brothers and Jacob, and he frankly forgives them. And not only does he forgive them, but he says it was all meant to be. It's a good thing that you did that. Everything is working together for our good, and he holds no grudge on them. So this family, his brothers, their wives, their children, Jacob, it's a group of 70 that we're told that enters into Egypt, into Memphis, this old city that's actually south of Cairo. So everything is going well until the time that there is a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph. And we're told that this Pharaoh is jealous of the children of Israel, the children of God, because they're waxing strong, they're multiplying, and God's grace seems to be with them. They're prospering in the land. So what does he do? He enslaves them, right? And they become slaves. They're used to help create a new kingdom which was probably up north a little bit, and they are in bondage, complete bondage. And this goes on for about 400 years. We don't know exactly how long, but in spite of the fact that they're in bondage and in slavery, building Pharaoh's kingdom, they are still strong, and they are still multiplying and growing. So our Bible tells us that after about 400 years of bondage, God declares that the time of deliverance, their deliverance, has come, right? And Moses, he raises up Moses, and Moses goes through a series of events, but finally he ends up before the Pharaoh. And what does he say to the Pharaoh?
Let my people go.
Let my people go. And Pharaoh, of course, says, no way. And so there's a struggle there. There are plagues that are sent, 10 to be exact, and they culminate with the Passover. We just celebrated that about a week and a half ago, where they put blood over their doorpost so that the destroying angel would pass over them, right? And the firstborn male of every family was taken, including the Pharaoh's. So that experience softens his heart, right? That's the last straw. And he says, take your people, please take them and go. So they go out into the desert, they leave Egypt, and they end up, they come to the Red Sea, and Moses is told to stretch out his rod, and he parts the Red Sea, and they walk across on dry ground. So it's one thing to walk across, and it's another thing to walk across and not get mud between your toes, right? They didn't get mud between their toes, according to the story. So they make it to the other side. Meanwhile, Pharaoh has a change of heart, right? And he selects 600 of his best officers and his best chariots, and he says, let's go get them. So they all ride out. They ride into the middle of the Red Sea. God collapses the water, and they're all drowned. Okay? So they're on the other side, the Israelites, and Miriam, Moses' sister, breaks out her tambourine and sings and dances. Do you remember that song? She sings, like Yahoo! Look at the Pharaoh and his officers have drowned. The water has collapsed over them. We are free. We are free. We are free at last. Okay. So, God does something very unique at this point. So we know the Pharaoh is no longer their problem, right? The Pharaoh's at the bottom of the Red Sea. And we know that Egypt has been cut off, literally, right? The sea has been collapsed. There's something separating them from the place of bondage. So they are free. But God does something unique with them. He actually takes them on this unique journey in the wilderness. He takes them by way of the wilderness, the Sinai Desert to be exact. And when we traveled through the Sinai Desert, it had actually been closed to tourism for a number of years. It was deemed unsafe, and so when we went, we had an armed guard on our bus. We had a truck full of armed guards in front of us and a truck full of armed guards behind us. I never felt like we were in any kind of danger. There were lots of road stops and places where they would stop us, and they were really monitoring. They don't want any problems for tourism. They want that industry to grow. So they are completely free from bondage. But even though they are out of Egypt, Egypt is not out of them, right? the effects of being in bondage are still lingering in their minds, in their consciousness. Okay, so God takes them on this detox plan, right? Now you know where we've been for the last number of years. Maybe where this community has been. We've been wandering around on in a detox program, right? We're not quite ready to enter the promised land. So really, the struggles that we have today and the struggles that the children of Israel had, they're not about coming out of bondage so much as these struggles are about developing the mindset that we can go in to the promised land, right? Because our minds will not let our feet take us where God wants us to go. Because there's some effects that are lingering in our consciousness, right? That we need to be cleansed of. So, our Bible declares that these people, the children of Israel, are on the brink of going into the promised land, where they were destined. But they've got a mindset problem that's prohibiting them. All right. They are delivered from Pharaoh, but they're not mentally free, right? They're physically free, but not mentally free. And they've got to get a mindset that will allow their feet to take them in. So remember, these people were born in slavery. They're not the original 70 that entered in. They were born there. So on a spiritual level, we too have been born into bondage, born into slavery. Not, some people physically are born into that situation. Probably most of us weren't born into bondage physically, but spiritually we are. We have been, because we are all, as Jesus taught, like that certain man that left Jerusalem. We left our heavenly abode, our heavenly city of peace, and we traveled down that treacherous red road to Jericho. So Jericho is the very lowest point on our earth. It's way below sea level, and it represents the nitty-gritty everyday life experience that we're having in these physical bodies, right? Along the way of incarnating into these physical bodies, traveling to Jericho, we were robbed and stripped of our identity. We were left, and I find this so amazing that Jesus said, left half dead, exactly one half dead. So can you see it? We have lost the memory, our identity, who we are as spiritual beings. We have a knowledge of our physical being, right? But we have lost our spiritual identity. That renders us half dead. But fortunately, help comes, right? A way is prepared for us to have this remembrance restored, that we can connect back with it and regain our true identity. So, so here we are, and I'll talk a little bit more about how that is going to be restored. But we're like the children of Israel in some respects, right? How many feel like you have fully stepped in and embraced your unique godness, your true identity? It's hard to retain that all the time, isn't it? Yeah. All right. So do you want to just keep wandering in that desert? That looks pretty bleak, doesn't it? It is bleak, let me tell you. So I just want to give you a little heads up about where we've been so far. Maybe I should take this mic. We started up here. Let's see here. There we go. But it doesn't shine on the screen. Okay.
Number 1.
Yeah, okay, you can see
Number
it.
one.
You don't need this. All right, so we started up there. We go south. We cross the Red Sea. This is where they believe they crossed. It was the narrowest part. Then we're over on the Sinai Peninsula, right? Miriam sings and dances, and then we go down, and you see Moriah, number 4. So even though all of these amazing miracles have happened, the Red Sea has been parted, and then here's a whole list of other miracles that have been happening to the children of Israel. They come to Moriah, and they're very thirsty. Their water supplies have run out, and there is a well there, right here. That's the well, they believe. It's still there today. And the water tastes bitter. How many of you have drank bitter water before? My first experience is camping. Oh, it did not taste good. Well, they complain bitterly. They say, we would be better off in bondage and have at least fresh water to drink. So they complain. Moses is instructed by the Spirit of the Lord to take a tree and to throw it in the well, and it miraculously turns the water sweet. So that's the first miracle. They are they have manna that comes down from heaven. They are given quail to eat for meat. An angel of God is with them always. And there's this cloud that follows them, a pillar of cloud, and a fire that protect them and that lead them and guide them and tell them where to go. On one occasion, water gushes from a rock. That's pretty miraculous. There's another time when there are some Bedouins around that are hostile towards them, and they end up having to fight them. And this is the valley where that took place. Moses stands up on one of those peaks, and as long as he raises his staff, they are victorious. If he lets down his staff, then these Bedouins start gaining the edge. So they actually, remember Moses got tired of holding his hands up with his rod, and so he has some help, and they actually help him hold his hand up. Another miracle. All right, on another occasion, Moses goes up to Mount Sinai. So these are the tops of the Sinai Mountains here. And you can see the top of it right behind Dave and I. That's the top. That's actually a beautiful valley. There's a real strong spiritual presence there. At night, the stars were unreal. Just amazing. It's a very special place. So all of these miracles are happening, and they're still having a hard time, right? So their journey continues, and they end up by the Red Sea, this spot. And that's another beautiful spot. But pretty soon, so that's actually the place that they camped first for a long period of time. Then they're instructed to move back up north to another place where, so you can see they go down to the Sinai Desert up to 11, which is that place by the Red Sea. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful spot. Saudi Arabia is right across on the other side. Then they go up to Kadesh Barnea. And this is a spot where they're actually able to peek into the promised land, the land that God has given them. And so it's there. So if this is just a picture that shows a diagram, remember there's 12 tribes, and so they kind of make these circles. They build their camps there. And Moses selects a leader from each one of those tribes, and he tells them to go together into the promised land and as spies and check it out and bring back word, right? So the 12 go and they come back. And they come back and they said, whoa, there are giant grapes there. They are so big that it takes men to carry them. There are figs and pomegranates. Oh, it is absolutely a land flowing with milk and honey. It's everything that God said it was. But there's one problem. God didn't say nothing about there being giants in the land. So remember, 10 of them start complaining. There's giants over there. So the Lord failed to mention about the giants. The land is full of people. We thought we were just going to waltz in there and there wouldn't be any struggle, there wouldn't be any warfare. So they began to be afraid, and 10 of them give a bad report. And then Caleb, remember Caleb? Dear Caleb, he stilled the people. That's what it says, he stilled the people. Now where I come from, it would have said, and Caleb told the people to shut up. He told them to shut up. And he says, let us go up at once and possess it. We are well able to possess it. So he has a completely opposite viewpoint, doesn't he? So I wanted to read a little bit about what was happening here. Now remember, he said, we can possess it. What is it? It's actually not the land, because he would have said, we can possess the land. We can possess the people. No, he says, we can possess it. So that's the mystery. What is it? What is it that we have to overcome? Okay, yeah, just hold that. So this is the story. It says, but the men that went up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched. And they, let's see here, they said, this land will eat up the inhabitants of it. And the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. They are giants. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as, do you remember? As grasshoppers. Grasshoppers and giants. Now these giants, Anak, they were actually the descendants of Esau. So we've got that family dynamic coming back. And so they were in their sight. That's what the scriptures say. So now even the sons of Anak, they're saying, why are you guys lying on us? We didn't even see you. We didn't even know that you were there. So they didn't even know that they were in the land. But for the 10 that went in, seeing those giants, really what happened is it made them see the way they see themselves manifest, right? They felt like grasshoppers. They felt like those people were giants. It was all in their minds. It was a story that it was a manifestation of how they felt about themselves. So what is it that they have to overcome? It's their identity, right? The way you see yourself. So, and that's true for us. What it is that we have to overcome is the way we see ourselves. That is, more than anything, is what is keeping them from entering into the promised land. That, more than anything, is what keeps us from stepping into and inheriting are good and are the highest and best that's available for us, right? It's a misunderstanding of our identity. So it's all that error thinking that's swimming around in our mind, informing our feet. So everything that has stopped us from believing what God has said about us and the children of Israel, the truth of who we are, we have an opportunity right here, right now, today, to allow that to dissolve and disappear and to step into a truer, more accurate identity of who we are. So if we continue with this story, and this is found in Numbers, the book of Numbers, it says, and this is the Lord speaking, he says, but my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him and hath followed me fully, him will I bring into the promised land, and his seed shall possess it. Do you remember that? So I would like for you all to turn to somebody, and I want you to repeat these words. So say to somebody close by you, get a look at me right now. Get a good look at me. Because this is the last time that you're going to see me like this. Because I am about to put on a new spirit. Okay, we are about to put on another spirit, a new spirit. There is another spirit inside of you. Did you know that? Yes. Caleb had put it on. You can just sense it, can't you? So, just to review, there's 12 that go in, they come out, the land is glorious and wonderful, they bring back proof, but 10 of them say, don't you dare mind those grapes because you can't have them, right? So there's something inside of us that we have to overcome, right? And we can overcome that by putting on a new spirit, another spirit. So this whole story has a spiritual parallel, right? A parallel that we can incorporate into our lives. So perhaps we didn't come out of physical bondage, but we are coming out of spiritual bondage, right? And actually we're out of it. We're in the wilderness at this point because we have an idea about our identity. We've actually been set free from bondage, but the effects of it are just lingering in our mind and in our consciousness. We were destined to live lives created in the image and likeness of God, right? God on high. We were destined to have power and glory, dominion, but is that identity the identity that we know best, that we know most intimately? That's what we're working on. So there's a scripture, and this is one that Unity probably tends to avoid, but you have to understand it accurately, and it kind of explains what happened to us. And it's found in Romans chapter 3, verse 23. And it says, for all have sinned. Now just watch, hang in with me. And fallen short of the glory. So sin is a word that we don't like to use very often, right? Because it actually has been used in abusive ways and incorrectly. So sin is not really about a moral code. That word sin is not really about you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to do this and that. No. It's not really about that. So that word sin, missing the mark or error thinking, is what happened to you, to I, to all of us when we descended from the spirit realm and incarnated, right? We were stripped of our identity. And the Adam and Eve story is an attempt to explain what happened to us, but that too has been used inappropriately. So I really like the teaching, the parable that Jesus gave. So we were stripped of our identity, and because we were stripped, that sin of being stripped of who we are, it starts chipping it away at our identity, right? It starts affecting us in all kinds of ways. So, like I said, there comes a time when healing, just like in the parable, so the Good Samaritan is about, remember he was asked 2 questions. So it's about more than who was my neighbor. It's actually the whole plan of life is revealed in that story. So help came initially with Jesus. He, an enlightened being who, according to Charles Fillmore, embodied fully his true identity. He fully knew who he was, and because of this, and because he was able to actually hold it in this physical realm, and he was able to love unconditionally, something happened. And Charles Fillmore said he didn't know exactly what it was, but he felt that something physical happened, that he said maybe it changed the ethers, or maybe it changed the material reality. Maybe it changed our DNA. Something happened that now opened a way for us to more fully embody, to hold our true identity. So because of that, as we hold our true identity, we are able to remember that identity more fully and to live from that identity fuller. So other help comes too from other beings, often according to that story from the sources we least expect it. But help is available if we ask for it and if we want it. So those effects of that fall, of falling and being stripped, are still in us, but there's help available. And all of this means that we really have literally and spiritually been delivered from bondage, but our battle today, our task, isn't with an enemy, so to speak, generally speaking. Who is the enemy? Our battle is with ourselves, right? Yeah. So you might say, I came here today to start a fight. And that fight is with you, your divinity, and your humanity, right? The fight is between our humanity and our divinity, and one of them is going to prevail. Who is it going to be? So the original people that came out of Israel, they actually were not permitted to go into the promised land as a result of the bad report that they gave, right? They actually didn't want to. On some way, they wanted to go back to Egypt. I can just imagine God saying, I didn't part the Red Sea and bring you out to go backwards, right? So instead, he says they're going to march around in the wilderness for 40 years, and only Caleb and Joshua, which are the 2 that brought back a positive report, they are going to go in. But meanwhile, while I'm marching you around, you're going to be giving birth to new souls, and those people will go in with Caleb and with Joshua. Why? Because they were born to be wild. They were born to be adventurous. They were not born in Egypt like their parents, right? These people could say, I may not have the name, the pedigree, the degrees. I may not have the knowledge, but this I know God. You know Pharaoh. I know God. And I know that whatever God says, he will prepare a way. So these people know, like from their experience, that with God all things are possible. That God can make a way out of no way. That there is a power and presence that we call God that is looking for an adventurous people, a people who are able to shift into what God has in store for them. So some of us may never get into the promised land because we had too much sense. And don't get me wrong, sense is good for things that make sense. But on some level, God doesn't really make sense in this world, does it? The whole idea. So instead, we have to have faith and to know God intimately and to trust that with God all things are possible. So this power and presence is looking for people who are adventurous, who are wild, who are willing to say, if you say it, I want it. I'll take it. That are brave and courageous and willing to do whatever it takes to put themselves where God wants them to be. So who here is brave enough to enter the promised land? Who wants some of those grapes? Those giant grapes, that milk and honey. Now I actually learned something else. In the Bible, when it talks about honey, it's really talking about date syrup, not honey as we think of it. The word that was honey is really a date syrup there. So everybody say, we're going in. We're going in. We're going in today. All right. So the Bible declares, and I told you this earlier, that God said, my servant Caleb and Joshua, I'm going to take in the promised land because he has another spirit. Another spirit. Now, when I first read that, I just thought that meant that Caleb was different. But I looked it up. I looked up the Hebrew word for another. And that Hebrew word, let's see here. Where did I put that? Akir. That Hebrew word is akir. And that means next. So Caleb had the next spirit. Or you could say he had a following spirit. Not like following me, but the one that's following, that comes after. So he had the next following spirit. So we have levels of spirit within us, and we can draw upon that and put on the next one. Because if you're going to do something brand new that you've never done before, can you do it with your old self that's never done it? You have to have a new spirit. You have to have the following or the next spirit. So Caleb was able to shift into that. So that's our clue, and that's our goal. That's what we need to do, is shift into that next spirit. So because our old spirit, the one that we've been using, it's not going to let us go into something new that it doesn't know. We have to put on a new you. So somebody shout out, I've got it in me.
I've got it in me.
We all have it in us. We just have to draw it out. So this is what I know. We could be sitting in poverty right here, right now. And if we are, there is a following spirit. There is the next spirit that is waiting to be drawn out that can take us from poverty into prosperity, right? We could be sitting with ill health right now. And if we are, there is a following spirit, the next spirit of health that is waiting for us to draw it out, to rise up out of us. So as a prophetic sign, I would just like to invite you to put your hand on your stomach and draw out the next spirit and just surround yourself with it as a prophetic sign. So just draw it out and just place it all around you. So, in conclusion, there is a power and a presence that we call God that is calling us right here, right now, calling forth that next spirit, right? To take us to higher level of thinking, to a higher understanding of our true nature and identity, to help us to step in to our highest good, to the best that God has in store for us, the best that we're able to hold and to embody. And to do that, we have to draw it out. So I'm going to invite you that next time you feel that urge and you start hearing those effects, the effects of Egypt rolling around in your head, I invite you to literally put your hand on your head and say, shut up. And remember Caleb. So literally put your hand on your head and say, shut up. And say, I'm going to allow the next spirit. I'm going to draw forth that next spirit that is going to help me to step in to my new identity, my new promised land. And I know that this works. I feel like I've had experiences of that in my life. About a decade ago, I had the thought that I was being called to ministry. And some of you who know me, I was raised Mormon, and I left that church as an adult. I raised my children that way, and I started attending Unity where I felt at home. And after several years, about a decade ago, I felt that call. But I thought, there's no way. How could I do that? I don't have the financial resources. I'm working. I don't have the time. But somehow, I came across some information about the online program, and I thought, I can do that. And I just signed myself up without understanding the whole program. I had no idea that I was going to have to fly back to Detroit twice a year. I had no idea how many years it was going to take or how much work it was, but I just kept doing the next thing, one step at a time, and the way was prepared. I mean, miraculously, things worked out. I had some frequent flyer miles or this or that, or one of the students invited me to stay in her home in Detroit, to help. Every step of the way, something happened. And finally, I was able to step in to that reality that I had dreamt about or had a vision of. We've all had those, right? So, I think I had some more slides here. All right, so at some point, after they fail and they're not going to enter the promised land, they go on this 40-year adventure. So they come back down, and they cross over, and they're actually in what is now today Jordan. And that area is actually called the Valley of Moses. And there's a back roads highway called the King's Highway that the children of Israel traveled up and down. So, and in the Valley of Moses is Petra. Are you familiar? That was like a famous trading post. So those are some of the carvings in the limestone. It's an amazing place, and the children of Israel wandered around that area. So they go up north to a northern point in Jordan, to Mount Nebo. And you'll remember that there they had another view of the promised land. So see, from that mountaintop, you can, that whole valley that you see, that is the promised land. You can see the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River. They had an amazing view from there. And that's also where they had serpents that were biting them. And remember, Moses was commanded to raise a serpent. And if people would just look at it, they would live. So they have a monument there. That's where Moses was ultimately buried, on Mount Nebo. So even Moses wasn't able to enter. He had the Spirit to bring him out, but not to go in. Caleb and Joshua and us. We're putting it on, right? To enter the new land. So they entered the new land, the promised land, by crossing from what is today Jordan, over the Jordan River. This is the Jordan River, into the promised land, which is today Israel. And that's a shot of the Jordan River. Beautiful area. I'll tell you a little bit more about it next time I come. I had the privilege of baptizing 16 people in that river where Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. So we'll learn. So I have an assignment for you. This is the first time I've given you an assignment. I want you to search your heart and soul and think of something that God is calling to you. And I want you to do this individually for yourself, and I want you to do it for Unity of Bremerton, for this spiritual community. What is Unity of Bremerton being called into? What is the next highest, best for Unity of Bremerton and for myself? And then ponder, what kind of a spirit do I need to get me there? What do I need to do to help myself and to help this community reach the next promised land? So think about that and then try on that spirit. Just tell your mind to shut up for all the reasons why you can't have an effect and you can't help bring this about. And draw out that new spirit, try it on, and step into the role. Okay? So, and report back to me. If you have my email address or get it from Cindy, I would love to hear a story about what you're working on and what you're doing, how you're helping your community, how you're helping yourself put on a new spirit. And maybe we'll have a few people share. And then so next time, we're going to be in the promised land. We're going to be embodying it and working in there, but we're going to find out what happens once we're in there. And we're going to learn how to roll back the deserts that appear. So it's kind of a two-part. So I'm going to just end you with a blessing more than a meditation. But I'd like to just invite you to close your eyes and to sit up a little straighter. Just breathe in and release. Just calm your mind and become present right here, right now. And know that this is a special time for you. This is a time for us to go beyond, to step into something new. You've got to believe that God didn't bring you out not to take you in to someplace new, to higher, to more good and glory. It's not God that's holding us back. It's not anything that's holding us back but ourselves. Because we know that many people have had the same circumstances and situations and even worse than we have. But they were able to put on a new spirit. And they did not step into a victim mentality. They didn't say, oh, I'm the wrong color. I didn't have the right family. I don't have money. I don't have education. No. They put on a new spirit and they stepped in. They went beyond. And so that's what we're going to do. Today, we got to finally see ourselves just as we are. We are capable, we are worthy, and we're ready to go. Those dreams and imaginations, those visions, that's why we're here today. This is why Jesus, at the I Am presence, came to teach us and to show us the way, a way out of the predicament that we were born into, a predicament that left us half dead, dead to the truth of who and what we are. Jesus came to reveal the truth of who we are, of who each other is, the truth about our current situation. He came to deliver us from all falsehood. And the good news is his power and presence, the I Am presence, is available right here, right now. So your mind is calm and you're excited and ready to step into a new spirit. And so I invite you to repeat these words after me. You can repeat them out loud. Today, I will not fear.
I will not fear.
I am.
I am.
Who God says I am.
Who God says I am.
I can do
I can do
what he says I can do.
what he says I can do.
The land that he showed me
The land that he showed me
belongs to me,
belongs to me.
and I will
And I will
possess
possess
every promise
every promise
of my land.
of my land.
Today,
Today,
I shift
I shift
into the next spirit.
into the next spirit.
Today, I shift
Today, I shift
into where I am going.
into where I am going.
Today,
Today,
I put on my new future.
I will on my future.
So now I invite you just to feel it. And say this like you mean it. In the name and through the power
Through the power
of Jesus the Christ.
of Jesus Christ.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Thank you. Everybody just shout out, we're going in. We're going in.
This is a song you all know, so join in on the chorus. You always do anyway when I sing it. Such a feeling's coming over me. There is wonder in most everything I see. Not a cloud in the sky, but the sun in my eyes. I won't be surprised if it's a dream. Everything I want the world to be is now coming true, especially for me. And the reason is clear, it's because you are near. You're the nearest thing to heaven that I've seen. I'm on the top of the world looking memories. There's a pleasing sense of happiness for me. There is only one wish on my mind. When this day is through, I hope that I will find that tomorrow will be just the same for you and me. All I need will be mine if you are here. I'm on the top of the world looking down on creation, and the only explanation I can find is the love that I've found ever since you've been around. Your love puts me at the top of the world. One more time. On the top of the world, looking down on creation, and the only explanation I have found is the love that I've found ever since you've been around. Your love puts me at the top of the world.
Thank you for that wonderful message, Reverend Karen, and I'm going to look forward to the second half of your message where you tell us more about rolling back the desert. And thank you for our musicians for the music. So we're going to be having a time of offertory in a moment here. I'll ask you to take out your tithes and love offerings, and as you're preparing them, think about how blessed you are, and as you're writing your check or giving your gift, send your blessings out. Not only to this world, but to this congregation. And so we can continue to bless our community. Okay. So as the music plays, you'll have an opportunity if you want to come forward and light a candle for yourself or for a loved one. That's available for you. And also if you choose to release something into the flame, there's papers available over here and a candle over here for that purpose. So this is what we're singing as the offertory happens. It's on the screen.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed.
blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. Okay, we have a portion now where we recognize good things that are happening in people's lives. Does anybody have some good news to share? Nora?
I started my second job this last week, so now I am overwhelmed with so much to do.
Nora, you'll understand when I say this comment. It's a good thing to keep you busy because otherwise you'd just be running amok.
Well, I don't know about you.
Yes, Miller?
I've always talked about the truth about cancer, and they were re-showing the 5th series free on the internet, and then they've done a whole series that's on the truth about cancer with pets. So if you care about your animals, cats, dogs, horses, whatever, your pets or anything, they are re-showing that and free on the internet. That'll be done tonight. And you can buy it really cheap. I mean, it's only like $47 to buy it digitally. But it is 7 series, and it is extraordinary. It's like you will never feed the same things to your pets to see where things are coming from. But it all ties in beautifully. So if you want to know about that or give me an email, I'll be happy to forward you a link to that.
Oh, yes.
My son made honor roll for the first semester, and it's his first year full back at school after homeschooling since the 4th grade, and he's in 8th grade. And I'm wearing a pant size that's 1 size smaller than I've worn since 2011.
I'm hanging out with her.
And I'm almost done with radiation.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to bless the offering as a congregation. So the blessings on the screen, will you join me in saying this? I give willingly, joyfully, and lovingly, knowing that God is the constant source of my supply. I give with graciousness and receive with gratitude. Thank you, God. Thank you. And we have the Food for Life program, a program where we provide food for the homeless in the nature of small items that can be put into lunches that they can carry with them. Is anybody willing to take the bag home with them and fill it with items for that purpose? Thank you, Ron. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. All right, Cindy is bringing somebody forward. We're going to bless our visitor today to the Children's Church.
This is Caleb.
Caleb.
That isn't timing, I don't know what is. This is our new little friend, Caleb. Caleb, say hi to everybody. He's
hiding. He's hiding. But he used to go to Unity in Yakima. So we were playing some Mark Stanton Welsh music, and he's like, I know that song. We did that one in Yakima. So we read some stories, and we talked, and we played with Legos, and he's just happy to be here. And our blessing is on the screen. This is what we say to our children. We love you, we bless you, and we appreciate you just the way you are. Welcome, welcome, Caleb. We hope you'll join us again. Thank you. And just as a reminder, we'd like to remind you, we do have a chaplain available today, Debbie Lee. She's back there against the back wall right now. She's waiting. And Nora's available. Chaplain's available to support you in prayer if you would like that. So we warmly invite you to participate in that. Okay. So it's now time. Stand and grab a hand and say our closing song. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment